Welcome to Immigration Quicktake. This is Ellie Rutledge Silver with the American Immigration Lawyers Association. Yesterday, the American Immigration Council, along with partners, filed a lawsuit that charges that the government violated individuals' rights to seek asylum. Here to share more about the lawsuit is Caroline Walters, staff attorney at the council. Caroline, thanks for joining me. What is this lawsuit seeking to do?
Thanks, Ellie. Thanks for having me. This lawsuit is a class action lawsuit that challenges the systematic and unlawful practice of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP's, turning away of asylum seekers who arrive at ports of entry, or POEs, all along the U.S.-Mexico border seeking protection. And specifically, the lawsuit is brought on behalf of an organization that is both Los Angeles and Tijuana based, called Al Otro Lado, as well as 6 individual plaintiffs who have all been victim to this practice. And what the lawsuit is alleging or seeking to do, the causes of action, are that we are challenging that this practice violates the plaintiff's statutory and regulatory rights to seek asylum under the Immigration and Nationality Act, as well as the plaintiff's procedural due process rights under the Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution, and finally, that this practice violates U.S. obligations under international law, or specifically the duty of non-refoulement, which states that a country will not return individuals who are persecuted to a country where they may then be persecuted again.
Why did the council file this lawsuit?
The council, along with its litigation partners, the Center for Constitutional Rights and the law firm of Latham & Watkins, brought this lawsuit because the right to seek asylum is guaranteed in both U.S. and international law. The council and many AILA members have been engaged for a long time now working with asylum seekers to ensure that they have access to the rights that they're guaranteed in the U.S. once they're here. The best example of this is the Dilley Pro Bono Project, a project with which the council has been working, and many AILA members have volunteered countless hours to help asylum seekers who are detained in family detention in Dilley. And we heard many awful accounts of the practice we're talking about today of turning away asylum seekers at the border precisely through stories at the Dilley Detention Center. The practice that I've talked about, it has generally happened in a number of kind of categories of tactics. So Customs and Border Protection officials will either provide misrepresentations of U.S. asylum law or the U.S. asylum process. They will threaten and intimidate potential asylum seekers. They will engage in verbal and physical abuse and even coercion. An example of this from our lawsuit, there is one individual plaintiff who is an asylum seeker from Honduras. She and her daughter were threatened and repeatedly raped in front of one another by a notorious gang. After this, they fled to Tijuana, Mexico, where they sought to seek protection, to seek asylum at a port of entry there. In fact, they tried 3 times and were turned away each time by Customs and Border Protection officials. The first time, they were told there was no more asylum in the United States. The second time, they were told that there was no more asylum for Central Americans, both misrepresentations of U.S. law. They were also, this second time, threatened that if the mother were to come back again to the port of entry, they would be handed over to Mexican authorities and deported back to Honduras. The third time that the mother and daughter approached the port of entry, they were told that they would be forcibly separated. The mother was pulled away from her daughter and was told that she could be processed for asylum, but that her daughter would be left behind. When she refused to do so, the 2 of them were escorted away from the port and unable to access the asylum process. So this is just one example of very many where we think it's so important for the council and its partners to bring this lawsuit, precisely because all we are asking is that Customs and Border Protection officials and the U.S. government follow the law, a law that was established by Congress and a procedure that was established by Congress to allow those, the most vulnerable among us who are seeking protection, to be able to access that process.
Now that the lawsuit is filed, what happens next?
So Some of the relief that the lawsuit is seeking is injunctive relief, and that means that we want to be able to have the court state that Customs and Border Protection officials cannot engage in any of the tactics or the systematic practice that I've described today, whether through the tactics I've mentioned or any others. At this point, the complaint was filed with the Central District Court of California yesterday, and it is our plan now to move forward with a temporary restraining order, or a TRO, which will ensure that those plaintiffs of ours who are currently still stranded in Mexico would be able to access the U.S. asylum process. Also, the complaint discusses all of our class action allegations, and so one of the next steps will also be filing the formal class certification motion that will ask the judge to certify a class that extends the whole length of the U.S. southern border with Mexico to ensure that this practice cannot be used against not only the individual plaintiffs in this lawsuit, but any asylum seekers who try to seek asylum at a U.S. port of entry along the U.S.-Mexico border. So please stay tuned.
Thanks, Caroline, for joining me. For the rest of you, please stay tuned for more updates from the American Immigration Lawyers Association.